Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I am Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Vanucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
We're on our couch. Don't worry about it.
No, you good, man. You got by far the most interesting background of any of us.
Exactly.
So you good. Yeah. Thanks for doing this. This is pretty exciting.
Yeah, this is cool. I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah. And then I think we're planning an interior run. So we think we might be in your neighborhood the end of August.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So
I think we're going to go up into the Kootenays and to the Okanagan for a couple of days and then come back through Chilliwack.
Yeah, wicked. Yeah, Spencer mentioned that's awesome. Be fun to have you guys. And yeah, whatever you need to do, or be dope to have you guys like record something there, or we could set something up. Yeah, whatever
That's
you
what
need
we're thinking, to actually do some recording there.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Right. So now have a couple of coffees and shit.
Yeah, we I'll send you some footage from it, but we're not close to putting it out yet. But we did like a live in cafe podcast with somebody. Kind of first time we've ever done anything live like that, and it actually went really well. So a little bit of ambient noise in the background, but could hear us really well. So I was thinking we could just we could probably shoot some shots so people kind of know what the cafe looks like and whatever else you want to show us, and then we'll kind of walk and talk and hang out, maybe have a coffee, so
sounds good.
And then I had your kind of new products on my brain. I was thinking we could because I'd be filming, we could do a little bit of your some of that stuff you were showing us when we were at the marketing meeting, right? Or that
the instant stuff.
Yeah, the instant stuff.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
We could even do like a cup of filter next to an instant and like a real time assessment. That's the instant. I like 3 coffees, and can you pick the instant out?
Yeah, we can screw around with it. You know what I mean? Like anything that it's hard to show that stuff off, right? Unless you're filming stuff, right? Like you can talk about it all day and people are like, whatever, right? And then when you show them, they're like, oh, I get it, so all that kind of stuff.
Very cool.
So for the audience that's listening, so Brandon, this is how we start, this is how we roll. So we kind of like hit record and then we just go. But for the audience, we've got Brandon on, who's going to introduce himself. He's from Smoking Gun Coffee, and we met Brandon at a BC Food and Bev peer group meeting about a month ago, and then Kenny and Brandon got a chance to see each other again at Food Pro. Not that long, last week, I guess it was, or the week before.
Yeah. 2 weeks? 2 weeks ago?
I don't know. A couple of weeks ago, I think. I don't know.
So much has happened between then and
somewhere in the near past, I think is the way I'll describe it. But when we met Brandon and Spencer at the peer marketing thing, they just they've kind of got this cool space, and then they've got some cool products. So we thought, Brandon would just, it'd be cool to get him on the show. So that's what we're doing. So
I always like some of the innovation of not just, we didn't get a chance to try the coffee. We'll try it, I guess, when we see you at the end of August. But just to even talk about some of the different things you're doing with the coffee. So for us, it's always the same. Why'd you do this? Why? Seriously, because that's usually the big thing. Why? Why? And then not just to make coffee, to have a cafe, which is why, and then to consider retail packs was the big why. So it's just kind of all that. So wherever you want to go, man. Next 45 minutes or so.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. This is really cool. It's I mean, the why. That's such a good question. I guess going way back to the beginning, I kind of always rattle around coffee spaces. And I think my first job, or one of my first jobs, was at Second Cup in Calgary,
Okay.
in the mall, and that was kind of my first exposure to the industry. And I was like 15, and it was kind of cool. And anyway, I've sort of always enjoyed coffee, enjoyed the culture around it. But I never really set out to start a coffee company. So it's really dynamic, I guess is the word I would use to kind of be in this experience. And actually, my training, my education, and my career for almost a decade was in social work. And so I did protection for almost 10 years, and really important work, and actually work that I felt like I was pretty good at. But really early on in my career, it was becoming more and more clear that I was struggling with my mental health. It was like a really difficult job to cope with, and I didn't really have the resources to navigate that. And what kind of happened, I was reading like little Reddit blogs on how people were roasting coffee and like the hot air popcorn poppers, like think of like the way your grandma makes popcorn, the thing that blows the popcorn up. Anyway, I thought that was really cool, and so I bought some green beans online and followed the little recipe that I read on Reddit. And it was the most therapeutic thing I have ever done. Like, roasting coffee is this like incredible sensory experience of sight and smell and timing, and you're like charting it and like writing your observations, and then in the end you have this thing that you channeled all of this energy into, that you can taste and that you can also share with people. And it became this incredible feedback loop that probably actually kept me in my career longer than I would have without it. It was really my therapy during that time. And because of that, and because of how rewarding it was really easy to kind of like recklessly throw myself at it. So I worked my job, and then I just kept kind of rolling down this hill with coffee, and I like really Frankensteined out that popcorn popper. Like, I drilled in thermometers, and I like tried to put like little probes so I could like do computer shit on it. It was really weird. It was super nerdy, and I'll never forget that. But yeah, as I kept doing it more and more people want to try it. Like, friends and family were kind of enjoying what I was doing. And so I was like, I need to make more. Like, you can only make half a cup of these popcorn poppers. And so I bought kind of my next roaster, which was another home style roaster. Kind of looks like a microwave, and you can do a little bit more at a time. And then, more and more people want to try it. So like every Saturday, all day, I'm in the garage roasting probably super shitty coffee. Looking back, like I can't imagine how it would have been that good. But people were stoked, and I was getting the reward of this, which was really part of my healing. And then one of my first true stockists. So like, this is all just like hustle, side hustle hobby. I wasn't making money doing it. But this coffee shop was starting up in a town nearby, and they had heard about me, and they wanted to be really unique and have a local product. So I'll never forget going there, and I roasted all this shit in my garage and whatever. But like, I really convinced them that I knew what I was doing. I'm like, I'm smoking gun coffee, and we did a tasting, and they're like, this is amazing. And they're like, and so they signed me up. Like, they're like, we want you to supply our coffee shop. And I'm like, no problem. And then I went home and had a breakdown, because I'm like, I can't do this on this little coffee.
Like, so you have no machinery yet, man. Like, you realize that, right?
Nothing. And anyway, so then I went hat in hand to a friend, and I'm like, I need a little bit of money to buy a roaster that can work. And so I got like a real like written on a napkin loan, and bought my first kind of more commercial style machine. And it was still something in my garage. I still had my job and whatever. And but that's kind of where I built, and it was going well at the coffee shop. And literally it was just me roasting on a Saturday, bagging it all by hand with my little sealer and stuff. And in the early days, like, it was like a paper bag, like with a Sharpie written on it. It was so yeah, lame. But it was still doing what it needed to do for me. Like it wasn't about money. It wasn't about business. It was like, it was so life-giving to do.
You feel
And
good.
yeah, it totally made me feel good.
How long did you do both? Like, how long were you were still social working at this time?
Yeah.
So Monday to Friday, you're doing that, and the weekends you're doing garage
roasting and garage roasting. And I did that for like probably like more realistically and with a few like real clients. Like I had a few other like boutique shops and gift stores, stuff like that. I probably did that for like 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
But then one day I had the local bylaws show up at my door, knock, knock, knock. And they're like, what the hell are you doing in here? Because like coffee, like it smells, there's smoke, like it's like a whole thing. And obviously one of my neighbors complained and they're like, you can't do this in here anymore. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And so I called
coffee for the neighbor. That's damn rude. What the hell, man?
I know, man.
You know what though, man? I hate to tell you, like a coffee shop really produce, or a roaster really produce a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily the pleasant smell. It's a great smell. I love coffee. I'm like you, so I could live and breathe. But it's different than coffee brewing in the house.
Totally.
So I can get sort of why the guy's being
Kenny, if you called on him, you should just admit you called on him. Like
I would never call. Why would I do? I love coffee, man. I would have been roasting with them.
I hear you defending this person, whoever it is.
No, I'm just telling you, like in a neighborhood setting, this is why they don't allow coffee roasting in the hood.
Yeah. And we had that experience twice. So we moved the thing to one of my friend's garages and started up the next day. And then we got chased out of there. And then by that time we had grown, so I needed the needed I needed a bigger machine, and that couldn't go in a garage, and I didn't really have space. So what I did is that same friend who loaned me money for my first roaster has a farm out in the kind of the backwoods of Mission, and I'm like, oh, the city's never going to find me there. So we actually
never catch me, suckers.
Yeah, we moved into a shipping container. And so we had got electrical run and all this. And so we roasted in the shipping container. We fired that up in like June, and it was like freaking hell during the summer. Like imagine being inside these little boxes. And then all of a sudden it's like October and it's like a refrigerator. And it was just like, it worked for a while, but anyway, it was like our Robin Hood era of coffee roasting, but it was still just snowballing, and that kind of led me to like the next phase, where I actually I kind of things did come to a head for me at social work, and I had to leave the career. Like I wasn't well, and so I had to step away, and then I just for a time went and worked construction to get my head back on. But that was really like the phase of the journey where like capacity got created in my mind. I was just like, I was in fight or flight, like just survival mode. And now stepping away from social work, which was hard, but was important, created that room for me to be like, what could this actually be? Like it's working, but what could it be? And so that kind of sparked this new project where I collaborated on some space with a brewery in Abbotsford. And so obviously they had a big warehouse. I had this machine. And it was a really nice partnership. And so I built out my first, commercial roastery that the city knew about, and we had all of the proper licensing and all that kind of stuff. And it was awesome. And we were super, super stoked. And then literally like 4 weeks later, after like our big grand opening, we're like, I quit my jobs and I'm like, we're going for it. The world comes to a complete halt and COVID sets in, and every little contract that I had dried up because all I was doing was wholesaling coffee, and nobody needed it anymore. So it's like, holy crap, like we're done. Like it ended before it even began. And so it was a really dynamic time. Obviously we all remember what that was like in the early days where there was so much uncertainty. And so for a while, I just put out calls on Instagram, like who needs coffee delivered to their house, and just like hustling it out to people's doors to keep the lights on. And then I had slowly been like collecting like brew equipment. Like I had a little espresso machine and grinder and stuff like that that I like to tinker on because I'm a nerd. And I was like, man, maybe I can make more money selling lattes than I can going on Serb and just like hanging it up. So I built this little app where people could order their coffee and write a description of their car. And then that way they drove into this big parking lot at the brewery, and it was like latte for like a blue Civic. And with my gloves and mask and on a tray, I'd run it out to their car window, and we called it the Curbside Cafe. And in Abbotsford at the time, it was like the only show in town. Like everything was closed.
So the brewery is closed at this point too, I'm assuming, right?
Brewery. Like they were still brewing and selling.
Right. But the facilities, it's just manufacturing. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. And so we utilized that parking lot area, and it became like a coffee drive-in. And that was, it's really interesting.
Fucking wicked pivot.
Yeah. Like, and that was my COVID experience. Was like I was never locked down or in quarantine. I was hustling the whole time, trying to figure out how to keep grease in the wheels. And it actually was this opportunity, not to make light of the situation. Like it was terrible for everyone and for many businesses, and yet it also presented this opportunity for us to get really creative and pivot in a way to kind of put us before people in a safe and controlled way. And that was really like, I would say, like sort of like the real spark that kind of created the iteration that we find ourselves in now, which is both this cafe expression as well as the roastery. And so things kept rolling along. A million things happened during that time. And eventually we moved to where we are now, which is in downtown Chilliwack in this wicked new development called District 1881. And it's like really quaint and ornate, lots of walking trails, and everyone always like, oh, it's like Disneyland kind of a thing. It's really fun. But it kind of has this like Yale Town feel. Lots of breweries and shops, and awesome. It's just a great place to put down roots. So yeah, I guess that's sort of the why is, why not? Like, what else would I do?
Well, I guess if you're, it's you're saying in a way that's kind of, I get it, but it's sort of nonchalant in that it's not quasi logical, right? It's still a stretch. Like most people would have probably gone on Serb or did what most people do. You hunkered down, you had your job, you do the best you can, you figure it out. Right. But to fuck, man, you put the pedal to the metal and thought, screw this. We got to do something. Like that's pretty creative, man. Like seriously, because nobody was leaving homes, right? So I mean, the only thing that was busy was like Phil was in Ontario, so they were shut down even differently than we were out west, right? But the only place anybody was going was grocery stores.
Yeah,
like nobody was going, but to open up in a parking lot, even I find that, like, seriously, that's a wicked pivot.
Yeah, it's kind of
like seriously, right?
It was cool too to see how, and we worked with the city of Abbotsford, and we had all of our safety plans and things in place. And then as things started loosening over time, we were able to sort of expand out in different ways.
Right.
Really a beautiful time too of, and for me that's been the experience of coffee, is like it has this incredible historic connective power. Like that's what it's 100%. Always been about. And
you got people really out of the home. You took people out of the house. You gave me somewhere to go then, right? I mean, you think about that from that angle. Like we're locked down, but we're allowed to move around. And you gave someone a chance to go and enjoy a nice cup of coffee outside.
Yeah, and we have beautiful moments to witness where, like, people, like friends were like driving up and parking next to each other, and their kids are waving at their friends through the window, and it was really a beautiful moment.
Awesome.
Like it had a lot of I'll never forget that. And then it started getting fun where like people were like writing poems and messages like in the area where you had to like write your car description, and then like the chit was like 2 meters long because everybody wanted to write the funniest thing, and it was so fun. But yeah, it was
awesome.
That's amazing.
How long did you do that? Like how long you were there for a while, and then you've moved to Chilliwack.
So like we ran that curbside cafe like out of the brewery. I think we did kind of different iterations of business there for like, I don't know, year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And obviously COVID restrictions lightened, and then what we did was we're like, this is cool, it's working well. The brewery was happy because we were bringing so much traffic in there in the morning time, and they didn't open till like 11 or 12. So we kind of did this swap concept where all my espresso stuff was on this cart, and then it would roll in. I would do the coffee program starting at 7, and then at about 1 or 2, I'd roll my shit out, and they would fire up their tasting room in their brewery. So it was like a really cool blend of businesses, and it really served each other really well.
I love that.
So that was cool. And then from there we moved into or we got asked to pop up at a local mall in Abbotsford because they had lost their Starbucks during COVID, and so they had this vacant spot that used to be at David's Tea, and they're like, hey, we just want coffee during spring break, and we're like, hey, no, yeah, we can do it. So the plan was to be there for 3 weeks, and we ended up staying there for like 7 months, serving coffee. And then from there, that's where the developer here in Chilliwack discovered us and was like, we got this cool thing cooking. Would you take a look at that? And so we were there for about 7 months. And now here in Chilliwack, we're in our 3rd year.
Wow. Like, seriously, that is really, really cool. Like, really.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, that's what an amazing story.
It's fun to look back. I actually haven't reflected on that for a while. So
no, because
cool.
I don't. Sometimes when you're living it, you don't appreciate it. Maybe sometimes as much. Like you're telling the two of us, and I'm thinking, I mean, God bless people who can do social work, because that's a tough job. One of my goddaughter does it, and I don't know how she does it. Like I don't get how you guys are wired. Probably the same as like a nurse. I don't really understand that world. That's a tough gig. But to take the leap into coffee and into entrepreneurship and shit like that, that's a quantum leap, man. Like,
It was definitely a big change, and like I was saying before, like it was a hard career to leave because I actually felt like I was pretty good at it. Like I believed in the work. I really like people. I felt like I was great at connecting with folks in really, really hard and difficult situations. So, I didn't really leave on my own terms. Like I had a burnout, like a breakdown.
Well, it'll do that to you. It drains you, right? It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's not a very simple job, right? It's emotionally
taxing. You're dealing with people's like people are coming to you because there's a reason. It's not because they feel great, right? Or situations are good. You're not last. You know what I mean? You're sort of. It's not a great spot to be in. And if you're good at it, thank God we have people that can do it.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
It is pretty rewarding to be in a total different industry where generally folks are pretty happy to see me. That wasn't really the experience before.
No.
But, yeah.
Wow. So you've got, when is the brand, so you were always sort of branded with your smoking gun, right? So you're there, but you're handwriting shit, you're doing, so like when does the sophistication, for lack of a better, sort of come into, like sooner or later you had to stop hand packing and hand feeling and hand writing. Like sooner or later there's a thing, an epiphany that you have and think, shit, maybe I should automate.
Yeah. And it sort of never ends. And man, did I make some hellish mistakes. And but yeah, like early on, we kind of moved from like handwriting on bags and stuff to like just more like stock bags with like Vistaprint labels on them and stuff like that, sort of like slowly getting a little bit more refined. And the hardest part about coffee packaging is it's not just 1 or 2 SKUs or products, if you like. It's like at any given time we have like 8 or 9 different types of coffee on the shelf.
Right.
And I can't order custom bags because of like, MOQs of like minimum 10,000 units or whatever.
Right.
And also some coffees, like I'm only getting 500 or 600 pounds,
Right.
From producers. So we had to get creative about like, how do we create something that looks awesome, but is still somewhat customizable. And so, early on, actually, no, right from the beginning, and I'll tell you about some of my mistakes along the way after, but the idea is like we make a really sick looking bag that is like our bag generic. And then I just have like a zebra laser printer that was actually just sitting on a shelf at the brewery, and I was like, hey man, can I have this? And he's like, yeah, I haven't used it in years. So it's still the one we're using. But then that way I can print like the custom bit on just a separate little like sticker that we put on the bag.
Right.
But man, like I remember the first order of custom bags I ever made. And this was while I was still in the garage. I was like, we're going to make them sick. We're going to make them good. And I had a student at UFB who wanted to use our thing for a branding case study. And I was like, wicked, like go for it. She made this beautiful design. I ordered like 10,000 bags. And when they arrived, they literally couldn't even fit half a pound of coffee. Somewhere along the way, the measurements got thrown off. And so I ended up with these little mini useless bags. And so then it was like, what do we do with it? We have so many. And anyway, that became a whole thing. And so we started selling like half-pound sampler packs, and eventually we moved through them all. And then we did a line of another line of bags. This was more recently, and these are recyclable products, but they didn't send us a proof before they put it into production. So we heard nothing from them. And then we got this like shipping slip. And I'm like, holy smokes, like we haven't even seen the product. And sure enough, when it arrived, it was incorrect. So the whole thing had to be turned around. Luckily, those bags were recyclable, so they could recycle them. But like the delays and all that, like it's been really hard to find like really reliable, streamlined packaging resources. But we have a company that we've been working with now that we really, really like. It's a recyclable bag product, which again, we really like and is really aligned with our ethos, because like coffee bags are a pretty like obnoxious single-use item. Like you dump it out and it's done. And so, but it's also like any production industry, it's like, where do you control costs? Like we can't get shittier coffee. That what we do is make excellent coffee. So that's like a cost that doesn't change. So we have to work on our packaging, but it still has to look excellent. It has to be, easy on the environment. It has to serve multiple functions. And so it's been quite a journey to, it was way easier to just write on a Sharpie on a literally
quick, right? Thinking, man, you know what? Where did the Sharpie go?
Yeah, man, that was sick. I mean, we still like the hardest working, most bang for buck tool I ever purchased was this stamp with my logo on it. I bought that like 5 years ago. I used to stamp our bags with it. Now we use that stamp to stamp every cup in our cafe. Same stamp. And I'm like, I paid $3 for that stamp on Etsy, and that was the best investment I've ever made.
Oh, you're funny, man. Holy shit. Wow.
I really, I love that. I love, okay. So now that you're in a cafe, do you see, like, cause both of us, I think the easiest part of meeting you was figuring out that you're in coffee, because both of us,
I love coffee, man.
We love food, and like, honestly, there's probably 1 million gallons of coffee running through my veins, right? And I laugh because I'm like you, but I'm like the light version. I am a coffee geek. I've got I think Kenny's crazy like that too, but I've got an espresso maker up here. I've got an old one that I kept downstairs that every now and then I break out. I've got at least 2 different pour over things, and like I've got an AeroPress that I actually carry it on planes with me. Oh, I think I told you that story, but like all these kind of like silly things, right? do you see kind of differences in the way people are drinking coffee or how they consume now, kind of like pre-post pandemic, like habits changing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one that like, man, I have different thoughts on different days about. Like I find the coffee industry is incredibly dynamic and really fluid right now. And it's sort of like, man, both and in a lot of situations. So it's like in some ways maybe the industry feels like it's like kind of slowing post pandemic, but I'm actually seeing as well that coffee people, like people who are coffee people, seem to be more interested in investing more in their coffee rituals. So it's like maybe fewer people are buying coffee every day at coffee shops, but the people who are actually really wanting more and better and are willing to pay for it. So it's like this really weird fluidity right now where we're really trying to determine like what is it that folks are kind of chasing in those coffee rituals, because like these are like coffee is important. It's like ancient and historical, and it I think, you know, things always typically swing in our capitalist, you know, framework to like quick and cheap and efficient, and that's what the people want. But I'm finding that that's not really true in our industry, and so there's sort of shocks happening where you know, the things that we thought people wanted may not be what they actually want. And then even on the other side of that, on the geeky side, like, you know, there's like coffees out there now, like in the way that production and in processing has evolved in this like really cool experimental way, like co-ferments and weird processes, and therefore that coffee is really expensive. And that's why you're seeing like, you know, bags of coffee at coffee shops for like, you know, $30 for 3/4 of a pound or more, you know. And but also like, is that what people want? Because we're almost sometimes in the industry lost in the weeds of chasing the things that we think people want. And what I find really, really interesting right now, and this is based on the report that came out regarding kind of like the lay of the land of the market in general terms, is the fastest growing segment of the coffee industry presently is instant and cup coffee. And the prediction is that segment of coffee at some point is going to reach par with whole bean coffee. And like that's a pretty incredible piece of information, that most like the more people are getting on board with instant and with K-cups and Nespressos. They're getting on board quicker with that than they are with like the whole bean coffee that I spend most of my time, you know, on. Right. And so that made us really curious about and it's also weird because those coffees are so, there's such a story about them. Like instant coffee is shitty. Like K-cups are not very good. You know, like it there's like a story that goes along with it, yet that story isn't enough to slow that segment from growing. And so our wheels got spinning a little bit to like, you know, we've been spending a lot of time, and we still spend time sourcing these really cool, weird, exotic processed coffees. But we're like, it seems like folks really want something different. And we went into some R&D on most recently an instant coffee product. And we found a company based in Calgary who are excellent, who use sublimation to make instant coffee, and who basically their whole MO is like, we could take excellent coffee and instantize it. And typically instant coffee is made out of the junk, like the stuff that you can't sell. They're like, no, send us your best and we'll show you what it could be like. Right. And we went back and forth with them, and like obviously it's different. It's not whole bean ground pour over coffee. However, I really feel like we got close to getting the instant out of instant coffee. Like it is an excellent product. It cups really, really, really well. And it's been wildly successful for us since its launch, and it's a really cool feeling to do something that is understood to be shit and be able to show it as something that can be excellent. Like all our effort went into that. That is our coffee. It went through all of our machines the same way. All the love and care and all of our sourcing models are the same. It just got processed differently, and we're able to present this specialty instant product for people. So we're pretty stoked on that. Like it's been a really, really cool process and project, and it really got wheels spinning for us about being creative in our product development. And so actually we met at the same meeting where I met you guys. We met a fella who is sparking up a new plant in Burnaby where they're doing this like custom Nespresso pods.
Yeah.
And so we've been back and forth with them. We actually, sidebar, we did a K-Cup experiment, and it was impossible to remove the K-Cupness out of the K-Cup. Like it just did not.
And you poke a hole this big into something and let water drip through it. I mean, at least with an espresso, more holes pump. Pressure counts.
It's just like better for it's better for the coffee. And so we're waiting for our first concept. It should actually arrive in the next day or two. And so we're really excited about what could be with those types of products, where it's like it's still all smoking gun delivered in a way that it seems like the market is asking for.
I think the market is asking for it, though. I think, Brandon, you got to, if you step back, you look at it, as surprising it is for North Americans, it's not for the world. Europe, Nescafe is the largest brand of coffee on the planet. That's mostly Europe and Asia. 3-in-1s are ridiculously popular all through Asia. Like it's only here, like in our country, and specifically probably in our city or this area, Toronto too. But where the bean coffee, like I like whole bean. I know the three of us do. But if you can find a very good instant coffee, if you think about for straight convenience, for no waste, there's nothing to throw out, right? It is instant. It dissolves. It's gone. You drink it all. Like there's so many other cool aspects to it. It's just like you said. I think the problem is that everybody just looked at is, the shit that was left over. That's what you made instant coffee with. So your instant coffee tasted pretty shitty. Maybe what's happened to the bonus is we got so much shitty coffee in the city and the Lower Mainland for sure, between a bunch of the chains, that quite frankly, instant's not a shitload worse than the shitty coffee you're drinking anyway.
That's a really good point.
Right. So you start, and then you think now, if you can get me a good product that's convenient, great for camping, great for outdoors, no waste. You're not leaving, you're not tampering with. I mean, coffee grounds are great, but not everything likes coffee grounds. So do you know what I mean? Like it's all the cool stuff that goes beside it. I think it's awesome.
It's also been really, really helpful in, like, we actually found that the instant product really boosted the sale of our wholesale.
I guess so. I got two options with you.
But also because, like, when we were marketing wholesale coffee before, we would show up with a sample, like a bag of whole bean coffee. And we're like, try our coffee. And coffee is fucking difficult to brew well. Like, it's not like, here's a can of beer. You crack it open, you sip it, and you taste the way they prepared it. Like, I've had people reach out to me on Instagram and stuff, and they're like, I went to your coffee shop and had the best cup of coffee ever. And so I bought a bag of beans and I took it home and it tastes like it's bad. Something's wrong. It's rotten or something like this. And I'm like, okay, like, sorry, that was your experience. Yeah. Like, let's dig into this a little bit. Like, first of all, like, tell me,
how'd you make it?
How did you grind it? And they're like, oh, I don't have a grinder, so I use my blender. And I'm like, whoa, okay. So it's like, when I give somebody coffee, I have no idea what's going to happen to it.
Absolutely.
But we've been actually using the instant to be like, listen, like, we understand this isn't whole bean coffee. Whole bean coffee is going to be a slightly different experience. However, this is a pretty great representation, and actually it's more controlled because I'm like, mix this bag with this amount of water and you're going to taste exactly what I want you to taste. Right. So it's been a really great tool that way as well.
I think so too. I think that's what the single pods.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, right? Because you almost like, maybe it's a bit of diverging of lifestyles too, as you start to realize, like, people who have the time, who are willing to indulge, are coming in, to the restaurant or to the cafe. And then, what you're getting at home, they are people that, they're time starved, right? Or because I think a lot of people have developed or maybe realized that they never liked hanging around other people during the pandemic, and they just don't want to go back, right? Like I know I have lots of friends that would choose to take out and bring it home, even though it's perfectly fine to be in a restaurant now. They just don't want to do it, right? So
Right.
I wonder if that's where some of what you're talking about in terms of the divergence in styles is. But those people also don't want to give up, right? Like, as I was telling Kenny that it's hard to go out and buy pasta, like a pasta dinner now, because, during the pandemic, I learned to make my own pasta, right? And I've got this Italian guy hanging over my shoulder telling me what to do. It's going to come out nice, but it means I'm not going to a restaurant to get it. But if I bring takeout home, I still need to make sure I'm getting the best I can get, which is maybe why
I think
I
the
think it's
control
kind of
is
cool. Like
the
I
beauty.
do think there are interesting trends you're seeing. I wonder if those are.
I think
some
it's
of
a control though, you guys. I think a lot of people, I think if there ever is a downswing in people going out, first costs become an issue, right? Money's a little tighter now than it's probably been in a long time for a lot of people. So money gets tight. The shitty part is you're the person who emails you and says, listen, I brought it home, it doesn't taste the same. I think that happens more often than not. And if you can teach somebody, or if you can give someone a tool, whether it's a really good pod, which is really, K-cups are horrific. We have an espresso machine that I use in a pinch, and I use it to make decaf, because I'm not putting decaf beans into my hopper for the espresso machine. And I'm like filled, and I have a full-blown espresso machine in the crawl space in case this one goes down, because we can't make drip coffee because someone is going to get killed. Like someone will lose a life, right?
No, but
that's emphatically true. We cannot function.
The other part of the craziness is when they send the one that's upstairs away for tune-up, then the one in the crawl space comes up as the backup.
Well, you have to have an alternate. I can't use a drip machine. What am I going to do? I'm not dripping coffee. I'm not doing, and I don't want to sit and grind. Like the machine grinds, the machine tamps, the machine does its thing. That's what the machine should do. Or the Nespresso, which at least has a pump, and at least it has 50 holes, not this one little dot, and water seeps through it. What are you going to get out of it? Nothing but shit. So to me, when you develop what you're developing, I love the aspect of the control. Guys, hot water, boiling water, 1 tablespoon. Stir. That's it. And you're going to get as near experience at the coffee bar as you're ever going to get. Where if you bring a bag of beans, mixing in a blender, God bless people. Why do they do that? I don't understand. I don't know how they got to that point. That was a good idea. Anyway, and then too much, not enough. How much water? How hot was the water? What's the machine like?
But you gotta give them some credit. Like there's some ingenuity there, right? So
not seriously, no, there's no ingenuity. Yeah. Go buy a blend. Go buy a coffee grinder, please. It's $20, $25.
No, I'm just saying that if they didn't have it in the moment, like, and you still want coffee, come on, you gotta give them some. I mean,
this much. Okay, I'll give you this. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, you raised like a really interesting point too, and that's stuff that we're always thinking about is like, and kind of what I was saying before, like what do people want and what are we actually doing? And you're exactly right. Like some of the coffees that we have and that are available in this more like, urban third wave style of coffee, they're really hard to brew. Like they're roasted quite light, they're really low in solubility, and like your margin for error is astronomical. So it's like expecting someone to take that home and get what we're hoping out of it is actually very, like, it's not reasonable.
It's not real.
And generally speaking, and that actually, when I first got started, one of my mentors, his name is Rob Hoos, and he's down in Portland, and he's like the father of light roasting coffee. He writes books. He's awesome, and he agreed to meet with me. And this was like garage days, right? So like I had my shit samples and paper bags with Sharpie on it, and so we sat down and we cut some of my coffees together. And basically, this was like the meeting where I'm like, if Rob tells me to stop, I'm gonna stop. If he told me, oh, I'm gonna go, he was like my like guru at that time. And so we drank some of those coffees, and he gave his feedback, and then we drank a couple of his coffees. And he had this beautiful light roast Kenyan, and then he had this dark roast, and like their utilitarian like house roast or whatever.
Yeah.
And he asked me, like, what do you think? What do you think of these coffees? And obviously, like, I'm a nerd, he's a nerd, like in the most endearing way. You know, like, and we got this like the incredible, like juicy, fruity Kenyan. And we got this dark roast, which, you know, I'm like many in my industry, I'm like, well, I don't prefer dark. Like I want light. And I was like, obviously the Kenyan, Rob, like no contest. This is beautiful. And he's like, okay, cool. Like that Kenyan, I also love. And this year we brought in 10 bags of that Kenyan to roast. That dark roast, we brought in 10,000 bags to roast. Like, and he's like, what I want to tell you is you need to know
what your customers
are. So it's like, we love the Kenyan too, but it's not the one keeping the lights on.
No,
that dark roast is what the people want, and there is a way to do it well. And it really created a framework for me of like, what am I trying to do? Like, is this for me, or is it for people, and what do the people want? And just because and that's been often like in the marketplace, what we've heard is like, oh, Smoking Gun, they only roast dark. Absolutely not. We have all kinds of nerdy coffees, but we also do have dark, because I want to include as many people as possible into what we're trying to do here. And what we're trying to do is actually like build connection through coffee, and to do so we need to have it all. Like, I got something that Rob Hoos gets stoked on, and it's really light and bright, and it's really hard to brew, and it's really niche. I have coffees that you can drink in a cafe and have 10 cups and mix with cream and sugar, and both of them get the same amount of love. And so casting that net has been really important for us. And so too, like these instant and cup products, it's important for us because we want people to be able to access us. Why would we gatekeep and be a barrier? Why not allow as many people as possible? It's what we're trying to build. So yeah, Rob, if you're listening, big love, brother.
Good for you, man. No, seriously, I think it's just important for people to understand that. Like, I mean, you brew or you roast for yourself. It's your coffee, so roast what you like, but also understand there's a business aspect around it, and roast what people want. It doesn't mean you have to roast it as shitty as I roast. There's nothing wrong with a dark roast. There's a lot wrong with a burnt roast, and there's a lot of shit in light coffee too. Like, you know, it's you know, every bean's different, every way you roast it is different, times a day are different, how you feel is different. You know, and again, you got to like the market. Like our city, you know as well as I do, loves a highly acidic coffee, which I cannot swallow. I can't drink the coffee in this city.
I think it's amazing that you met your mentor.
I love it, man.
I think that's, you know, you're kind
how
of
cool is that? Like, seriously,
it's cool, and it's terribly nerve-wracking. Like, it's
well, that's what I mean? Your life's in his hands.
Yeah,
buddy, you're a loser. You're not doing coffee no more. Well, buddy, you know what? Do coffee. Oh,
in the end, he didn't say whether yes or no. That was his. He kind of delivered it more. And actually, looking back, I'm glad it was more like a true guru thing. Like, here's an illustration, you know, like, and interpret it as you will.
Grasshopper,
you know, like, yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, I like, honestly, the shit I served him at that cupping, I can't believe. I can't even imagine how bad it was. Like, in like a red hot shipping container, like uncontrolled.
You probably saw the potential, right? And that's the difference. You can learn how to roast. You can't learn how to be passionate about it. You can't learn how to nerd out. Like, you either do or you don't. You can definitely learn how to roast. So he probably thought, okay, whether this kid can roast at this point or not is really not as relevant as that he's capable of learning how to do this. Like, and he gets it. Like, he this is the guy that could do it. Makes a big difference, right? Seriously. A lot of people shouldn't do what they do because they're just not good at what they do. And they're not going to get any better just because they wish it. They're just not wired for it. You clearly are wired for coffee.
Yeah.
very clearly you are meant for coffee.
I think it's cool that
Wired for coffee.
you went to meet a mentor.
You can
'cause I
use
think
that, eh? I give you that one free. That's the last one.
Yeah, it's a nice pun actually. Wired for coffee. That's got to go on something.
Yeah, I'm gonna put on a T-shirt.
Kenny's got too many T-shirts. Yeah, too
my
many T-shirts with his sayings on it. That's amazing. We love what you do, and I can't wait.
I can't wait to come see you.
Actually, because it's like the middle of June, so it's a little bit before we see you again at the cafe. But I can't wait. Like,
Yeah, I'm stoked. It'll be fun.
I'm super excited to see it. I'm dying to try the coffees and just shoot the shit a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be really cool.
Here for it.
Plan Bill's trip now better.
Yeah.
Might have to come in Sunday morning. I'm thinking ahead. We may have to.
Okay.
You may have to take an extra day because.
All right. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
His trip is on the way to the airport. That's why I'm thinking maybe.
Yeah.
Might be a little rough otherwise.
Thank you for doing this with us. If people want to find the cafe, if they want to find you, where do they go to do all that?
Yeah. Probably easiest way is just to find us online on our socials. It's just Smoking Gun Coffee. And then our website, smokingguncoffee.com. And we are in beautiful downtown Chilliwack. And yeah, definitely recommend popping out. You could easily spend a nice afternoon here. Lots of shops and breweries and restaurants. And
very cool.
Yeah. District 1881 is our area, but yeah, we're pretty easy to find online, and would be great to have you.
We're looking forward to seeing you in a couple months now, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. You go and have a wonderful evening. Thanks for doing this. Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, everybody.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
No worries, guys.
Okay. Take care, my friend. Have a nice afternoon.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. He's cool. I love any.
I don't care if I love people that love what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's contagious. It's infectious. It's such a great thing. Good for him. Yeah. Nice young man.
Yeah. He's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you guys, thanks for listening,
everybody.